Well, welcome to Win TV. Glad to have you watching and tuning in for to us today. I hope you picked up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. You can read the digital edition, and Chevy said I can blame it on her that you don't see that, but this is what I want you to see anyway. The print edition that's available on newsstands right now, as well as our supplement, our monthly, a quarterly supplement, health supplement that's out this week, and that we focused this month on children's health. You know, it's back to school time, so we are so elated that the Department of Behavioral Health, Safeway, and AmeriHealth helped to sponsor our back to school children's health supplement. So pick up a copy of the Washington Informer today. They're available on newsstands all across the city. So, and they're free. So if you have a friend or a colleague that you want to share the paper with, it's okay to pick up more than one. I know a lot of you do already, but I'm just telling you, it's all right. For those who don't know, I'm Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and we are so excited to bring Win TV to you every week from noon to 1 here on YouTube, Facebook, all the social channels. So we want to ask you to share and broadcast with your social media audience and follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So please follow us. And if you're seeing the show after the live broadcast, it's quite okay for you to share the parts that you really like with friends and colleagues. And we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. That's one word, Washington Informer TV. And there you can see all of our shows that we've done. It's amazing, Chevry. It's been over 3 years now. Gosh, everybody knows who's talked to me that I call this our COVID baby. When we recognized that we couldn't get newspapers distributed throughout the community because so many of the stores were closed back in, was it 2020? Seems like it's so long ago. But at any rate, the stores were closed. So we said, our team of fearless reporters were still out there covering stories. So we wanted to find ways to get this information to you. And so we thought, why not start a digital broadcast? We were early in the game, and we're still here. And we're so grateful to organizations. And I'll just share with you, like today's program, which is being sponsored by the Department of Behavioral Health. The sponsorship helps us to bring great, hopefully much needed information to our community. And so we just keep on doing it. And so when we talk about the Department of Behavioral Health, we have with us today Dr. Richard Bibout, who is the Chief of Crisis Services, who'll share with us the city's services that they offer when someone is experiencing a mental health crisis. So we look forward to talking to him, along with Siobhan Arlene Bradley, President and CEO of the National Council of Negro Women. She'll be talking to our illustrious Washington Informer reporter, Brenda Seiler, about her new role with the organization, as well as the 60th anniversary March on Washington. Looking forward to that conversation. And the 9th annual Chuck Brown Day is next Saturday. And Thene Freeman, director of the DC Department of Recreation, will be here to tell us what we can expect at Chuck Brown Day. The location or venue has changed, and we're going to talk about that, as well as what events are going to take place to honor the Godfather of the Godfather of Go-Go. I was going to say the Godfather of Soul, but the Godfather of Go-Go, Chuck Brown. And it's also National Black Business Month, and entrepreneur and franchise owner Chris Sneed is joining us to talk about what a successful business looks like. I want to hear that. I mean, we've survived 58 years, and we consider ourselves being successful. But there's always new things you can learn. So I'm glad that Chris Sneed is going to be with us and to share some tips on how to be a successful business, whether you're Black owned or not. But his focus is on Black owned businesses. So before we bring on our first guest, let's watch our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is Win TV News, bringing you the news that matters. Maryland Governor Wes Moore has appointed Antoine A. M. Thompson, the executive director of the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition, to the Maryland Commission on Transportation, Revenue, and Infrastructure Needs. Thompson will serve a 2-year term headlining the 31-member commission, which reviews, evaluates, and recommends the prioritization and funding of transportation projects. The commission is made up of legislators, representatives from local governments, as well as transportation, industry, business, labor, and environmental organizations. DARPA, the Pentagon agency that funds moonshot technology innovations, is hosting a 2-year competition for artificial intelligence experts to create new ways to bolster the world's cybersecurity. The competition launches Wednesday at the cybersecurity conference Black Hat in Las Vegas. It asks participants to create tools that can be used by anyone to help identify and fix holes in software to keep hackers from exploiting them. It will dole out a total of $18.5 million to winners in different categories and will formally conclude at the DEF CON Hacker Conference in Las Vegas on August 2025. Perry Adams, the DARPA program manager overseeing the competition, said the competition is aimed to help cybersecurity experts defend against a growing landscape of creative hackers. In a victory for LGBTQ rights, a broad swath of the U.S. population of gay and bisexual men on Monday became newly able to donate blood thanks to the American Red Cross's implementation of a landmark recent change in the Food and Drug Administration's policy. The policy, which the FDA put on the books in May, newly permits donations from men in monogamous relationships with other men, as well as those who have not recently engaged in sex. David Stacy, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Human Rights Campaign, the nation's largest LGBTQ advocacy organization, called the new policy, quote, a long-awaited step forward, and that it marks the end to a decades-old ban rooted in discrimination and bias.
Thank you so much, Curtis. And now it's my pleasure to bring to the program Dr. Richard Bibout, who is the Chief of Crisis Services at the DC Department of Behavioral Health. Richard, welcome to WIN TV.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you for having us.
No, it's our pleasure. We have enjoyed and learned a lot from the guests that have appeared before you, from the Department of Behavioral Health. So we're so glad to have you on because, one of the big issues that I know that you're addressing that our city sees a lot is these mental health crises and what we do about them. So could you tell us a little bit about the crisis services and your work at DBH?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. We're doing a lot of interesting things. I've been with the department for just under 4 years at this point, and I was serving as Dr. Bazran's Senior Deputy Director. When 2 years ago, here in the district and nationally, really began a seismic shift in how we were thinking about behavioral health crises and how do we move away from an automatic law enforcement response to a clinician-led health-first approach to people experiencing behavioral health crises. Some additional positions were funded, and with Dr. Bazran, we crafted a new role. I'm now serving in the role of Chief of Crisis Services. And the reason for that was really to make sure that the DBH operated crisis services were operating as a single continuum, if you will, and to strengthen our partnerships with other entities like MPD and Fire and EMS and Office of Unified Communications. And so there's some things happening there that I am excited to share.
Wonderful. And that's one of the questions that I think we often have. We know that it's become sort of a common thought that mental health is at a crisis level in our communities. But we don't always know what it looks like, And so I'm wondering, when you talk about a mental health crisis, is there a definition? Is there something that we see that helps us to define? I mean, some things are really obvious, but some things aren't until it's too late.
Sure. So I appreciate the question. And yes, I do think that COVID specifically helped to surface and created some new emerging mental health needs. The Department of Behavioral Health has historically really focused on people with severe and persistent mental disorders and substance use disorders. But we are moving really to look at a population level and look at the entire District of Columbia's population and mental health needs. And crises can look very different. There's a crisis that you might encounter on the street where somebody maybe seems out of control or aggressive or talking to themselves. But I think it's also important, again, back to COVID, the isolation, the amount of anxiety and depression that surface newly emerging conditions also means, people can be in crisis very quietly. And we want to look for changes in terms of how their self-care, changes in character, mood. Most importantly, want to talk a little bit later about training that we are doing in the community and at the MPD's training academy on mental health first aid. But most importantly, we really want citizens to become more literate about behavioral health conditions and feel empowered to say something. One of the common myths about suicide, for example, is that people are afraid to mention it because they think it will make somebody more likely to entertain suicidal thoughts or to take action. And there's no evidence of that.
Oh, it's interesting because we do hear that a lot. And even for those of us in the media, how we cover suicide, has been a challenge because we don't want to. We're always very conscious of what the stories that we write, the impact of the stories that we write on people who may be considering taking their own lives.
Yep. No, I've learned a lot about that recently from some work that the department is doing with the Department of Transportation around suicide prevention. But on a personal level, yes, it's important for people to be able to talk about it. And the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention even says, has a series called Talk Saves Lives. But you're right, the media, it is important for the media to follow specific guidelines and recommendations, including, most importantly, not highlighting specific explicit means and lethal means of suicide, because that has the potential for creating, raising the risk of somebody taking action.
I know that the city, we've talked about this before, where in many instances when that 911 call goes out, and you talked about this a few minutes ago, MPD shows up when it may not be an MPD issue. And
Right.
So how do you all coordinate? If that person is going to call 911, where does the crisis services aspect of this come into play, or how does it come into play?
Yep, great question. And I think, as I said, we're really working to respond as much as possible when we can safely to put behavioral health clinicians as the first responders to behavioral health crises. So a number of things are happening to make that possible. One is that I mentioned the DBH operated services. We operate the crisis call center known as Access Helpline, which is the district's sole 988 suicide and crisis lifeline affiliate. For 2 years now, we have undertaken a 911 behavioral health call diversion project that we are doing in partnership with the Office of Unified Communications, which is the 311 and 911 call center with MPD and fire and EMS. So if somebody calls 911 and there's no indication of any imminent dangerousness or weapon or something like that, they are increasingly transferring those calls to DBH. If we can't resolve it telephonically, we have the ability to dispatch our mobile crisis team, which is part of what's known as the community response team. Mm-hmm. And they go to the person. So they take services to the person. Historically, there have been a lot of times when MPD and CRT both responded either either CRT responded and requested MPD support or vice versa. But the 911 diversion program is a new option. In addition to that, we are in the midst of standing up a co-response approach, which will pair mental health clinicians with MPD officers. They'll ride together and be able to respond when there's a behavioral health issue on a call that has come through 911 and led to MPD dispatch. So there's a whole range of options that we're trying to promote. And I mentioned just in passing 988. 988 is a 3-digit call code that went live last July nationwide. You can call 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The idea is to get that to your local call center, but if the local call center somehow can't answer it, the centers are networked. So there's always somebody that's going to answer that call. You know, I think we also, frankly, want to promote the Access Helpline number, 888-793-4357, and even a direct call to the community response team, which is 202-673-6495. But if you call 911 or 988, you end up with a DBH call taker who will work to resolve that.
So what happens, Mr. Rebout, if you know, someone gives a call, they see someone that's having a mental health, what appears to be a mental health crisis. It's something that can't be addressed by phone. The health crisis folks have to show up. And then what happens? Where's that person taken?
So I'm glad you asked. The national model, the standard for crisis care is someone to talk to, someone to respond, and a place to go. Someone to talk to is the call center, someone to respond is the mobile crisis team. And then the places to go here in the district are the community, the Comprehensive Psychiatric Emergency Program, known as CPEP by shorthand. If somebody needs to be evaluated and stabilized, they can go there for up to 24 hours, extending up to 72 hours. Obviously, we are trying to use the least restrictive means, but sometimes people are picked up for an involuntary hold for evaluation and may be admitted to an inpatient psychiatric facility. In addition to CPEP, I think Dr. Moise may have spoken about this last week. We are poised this fall to open the district's first stabilization and sobering center for people that are experiencing acute intoxication, or so that we can avoid unnecessary transports to emergency departments when the vast majority of people don't need emergency level care. The other thing about the stabilization center is that we really see it as a low barrier entry point to hopefully engage people in ongoing services, which just doesn't happen. EDs or emergency departments are simply not really equipped to do that. So people get treated and released, and often we miss an opportunity to try to engage them in care.
You know, we're running a little bit out of time here, but 2 questions that I have left. One, when a person experiences this mental health crisis and they're, taken to a place where they can get care, who pays for that? Is the city paying for that, or is it their own Medicaid, or what happens?
Much of what we deal with is, as you know, the district has an incredible penetration with Medicaid. So most of it is Medicaid reimbursable. In terms of the crisis care, CPEP encounters are Medicaid reimbursable. there are costs that are part of our local appropriation, but by and large, there is work to be done here and across the country for private insurers to also begin to pay their fair share for crisis response. But by and large, individuals are not bearing that cost.
So now that this crisis, service has been created, what will residents see, or should we see, that's different? Just like we have a new assistant police chief, for example, and who is really going to be tough on the crime that we're experiencing in the city. So people are going to be looking around and say, okay, is her leadership making a difference? What will we see differently with the crisis services? And I ask that because, there are communities across the city where we see things or individuals in the streets or on the streets in conditions that are abnormal. And it could be, like you said, substance abuse related or what have you. And just knowing when you need to make that call on behalf of that person, or, should we see less folks out there in distress because you all have become so busy, or will you become so busy?
Well, we are expanding so that we have more capacity for mental health response to mental health crises, behavioral health crises. I do want to add one other thing with respect to our good partners with MPD, which is the mayor, the chief, our director have committed to all officers being trained either in mental health first aid, which is a nationally known curriculum, or in the crisis intervention officer model. So everybody's getting mental health first aid training before they finish at the academy. Every officer on the street is getting mental health first aid training or is being trained as a crisis intervention officer. Again, we're trying to get behavioral health clinicians to respond to behavioral health crises. We're looking at alternative transportation strategies and things like that. But police are invaluable as partners in this and do encounter people in behavioral health distress. So we want them to be better equipped and have skills for de-escalation, helping to talk people down when there are general police aspects of general police training have the risk of somebody in behavioral health crisis actually escalating. Police are supposed to take command of a situation, and that may not be the best way to approach somebody that's in distress.
Right. I understand that. And this would be for both adults and juveniles or children?
Yes, the city does have mobile crisis for children and adolescents as well as for adults.
Okay.
That is all part of our umbrella. And it is a piece of the training, the mental health first aid training and crisis intervention officer training that MPD officers are receiving.
Well, Dr. Rebout, we know how essential the service is in the district. We're glad that the mental health advocates found a friend in the city government and leadership there to say we've got to do things a little bit differently, and how do we address this mental health crisis that we're seeing, not just in the district, but all over. And I think you said COVID did help to exacerbate the problem. So we are really grateful that you all are here to share this information with us weekly. And we look forward to hearing more about what your office is doing to help us to become a well community.
Thanks so much for the opportunity and appreciate your support.
All righty. Have a good one.
Take care.
Thank you. So next we're going to have the president and CEO of the National Council of Negro Women. Who would have thought that anybody could follow in the footsteps of Dr. Dorothy Height? But Siobhan L. Arlene Bradley Arline has taken that title on, and now you are at the helm. And so it's a great pleasure to meet you and to welcome you to WIN TV.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here, and footsteps that can never be filled just continued.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to turn you over to Brenda Seiler, our illustrious reporter. I know she's been, touting praises for you and really wanting to talk to you. So I will not stand in the way of that interview. Brenda?
Good afternoon and welcome, Reverend Arline Bradley. Thanks for being here. One of the things that we wanted to talk to you about is the March on Washington that's coming up. But before, I think it's important that people understand the breadth and the depth of what NCNW has been about all this time, all of our lives, just about.
Well, Sister Brenda, thank you. And thank you to the Informer for the opportunity. NCNW has been in existence since 1935, founded by Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, a heroine not only in Black history, but American history and political culture. She coined this term, we are an organization of organizations, where Black women came together in New York in 1935 to begin to have the deep questions about how Black women unify for the advancement of our communities. And let me say, from her leadership all the way to leadership of Dr. Height, and since then, Dr. Shaw, Dr. Saunders Jones, Johnetta Cole, Thelma Daly, and now our new chair, Dr. Lois Keith, NCNW has gone through a transition. We still have 33 national affiliated organizations. So the Divine Nine Sisters, the Links Incorporated, the Gems, the Continentals, all the way to 330 chapters, which we call sections across the United States. And what many don't know, a third of those sections are actually collegiates, where we have young women who are still engaging in this work. And in this past January, they voted to have a new infrastructure where we now have a president and CEO and now chair of the board. And so I'm the first and youngest person to ever sit in this position.
And we welcome you. And I wanted to make sure people also understand that you're an ordained minister and a pastor at Alfred Street Baptist Church in Old Town Alexandria. And in your role with the upcoming March on Washington, the 60th anniversary, you are a co-chair. And there are so many issues facing America. I don't want it to be just about Black folks. It's impacting everybody.
Mm-hmm.
How do you come up with narrowing the focus or come up with the themes when there are so many things that we are struggling with right now?
Well, you know what? It's so interesting. Being an associate at Alfred Street has helped me with this space and this question, which is when the whole of the people are in need, what do you do? So NCNW has a primary, 4 core areas that we focus on: healthcare, education with a focus on STEAM, and economic development. This March on Washington, quite frankly, has mirrored the original March on Washington as it relates to issues around poverty. Voting rights is still at the helm. And now where we're seeing this massive recall of our constitutional freedoms from the Supreme Court, as well as looking at issues around curricula with Black history in schools, we now see that this march is going to augment our voice to reclaim what has been fought for already. And so we're focusing on issues around connecting our constitutional access to the right to vote. We're going to be pushing back on state legislators across the country who are choosing and intentionally reshifting resources to come out of our schools to really water down the history of Black people in this country. But I will tell you, as a woman, this March on Washington means more to Black women than many others, because if you all remember, that march only had one woman's voice, and that was Daisy Bates. Dorothy Height was actually one of the key orchestrators of the march, kept it together, kept the men together, all the way up to the day that they got to that stage, and she did not speak. Well, this march will be different, and you will see our voices, but also our issues at the forefront.
I think that's important. And when people go to the website and get information about the March on Washington, they will see such a wonderful, diverse group of organizations that have come on board. We're talking about organizations that represent Blacks, that represent Latinos, that represent AAPI, represent LGBTQ, Jewish organizations, labor unions, which I think is very important because that's about employment as well, and also faith-based denominations.
Mhm.
It is a wonderful representation of what America is, what it has been, and it should dispel any ideas of what should be talked about in
Yes.
terms of excluding groups. That's the biggest thing that I think I've struggled with. There is an intentional effort by some to exclude
Mhm.
people, and this is a coming together. How will this march, and hopefully what will come out of it, be taken afterwards by the co-chairs to try to shape it into some sort of very intentional advocacy activities for America?
It's a great question, and it's actually what we've been wrestling with as civil rights organizations. NCNW is a part of a legacy list of organizations that have continuously over the years been together. And one of the things that we walked away with as a collective was that we will use this as our catapult of the Black agenda. This agenda will include issues around economic development and fairness. It'll be around civic participation and engagement. It'll be around retracting and reclaiming constitutional freedoms, looking at affirmative action, looking at reproductive justice, all issues that affect everyday people, but in particular African Americans, and for me personally, Black women. The other thing that you'll see is this recommitment to organizing on the state level.
Yes.
What we want your listeners to understand is that our constituencies are voters. Black women have been the most consistent voting bloc in the last few elections that we've known. And what we are saying is that we're using this to catapult us around how do we massively mobilize on the ground for 2023 and 24. Don't forget, there are some elections in some key states, Louisiana, in 2023. And we're going to now use this march as a large mass response to what has been happening and the immediate pushback to what we will not tolerate on our watch.
I think that's important. And we're basically going back to our roots, going back to the strategies that got us to where we are now. And we can't go back, is what I say. We can't go back. And we definitely need to focus in on what I call access to care and access to visibility, because as we know, there's a new COVID strain that is out, and we know how things were during COVID and who was able to access the care. So when I think about access on all levels, I know that that's going to be some of the activities and some of the issues that are going to be tackled by this march at just basic access.
Basic access. And listen, access to care, access to education, access to economic justice and fair wages and livable wages, access to constitutional rights to make decisions on your own. And here's one thing, Brenda, that you said about this idea of inclusivity and exclusivity. This is all about constitutional freedom. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we are committed to, and I'm an ordained minister, so I know there are some major issues that people may have around some of the issues you've been hearing about, particularly around abortion, issues of immigration, and persons that are living with disabilities. These are equity issues that we have to really rethink. How are we treating the least of these, those that have been marginalized for our country's history? And that's where we as a faith community, as a civil rights community, can come together and say we may differ on theology or on philosophy, but we cannot differ on everyone's constitutional right to have their freedoms. And that's where we are united.
I appreciate you mentioning in your overview of the National Council of Negro Women about your college chapters. Mm-hmm. I worship at Rankin Chapel at Howard, and it's lovely to see that that chapter of NCNW are constantly making presentations and appeals for help. You're shaping the minds of young people so that they are ready for the fight, as I call it. Talk about that and the chapters that you have, and congratulations on even having all of those chapters.
Oh my gosh. It is an infrastructure that I've inherited, but I will say the energy in I've been on the job literally for 4 months, and we have seen energy We have seen charters come in from all over the country, Las Vegas, from some universities like Xavier University. Shout out to Xavier University and all those kinds of schools that are asking for chapters all over this country. And they are here. We have young women who are in youth sections, our 11-year-olds, our 12-year-olds. We are all over the country now seeing our young people. And so we are ecstatic about that engagement and looking forward to continuing our traditions with young women, learning from seasoned women, and being able to engage.
Thank you so much for your time today, Reverend Siobhan Arline Bradley. Thank you for your insight in terms of what's coming up with the March on Washington. Keep it going with the National Council of Negro Women. And we just thank you today, and we hope to have you back on WIN TV.
I am ready. Thank you so much, Sister Brenda. We love you all.
Thank you so very much. And we're going to throw it back to Denise.
Thanks so much, Brenda. That was a wonderful interview. And I think I'm quite familiar with our guests because I do watch, in addition to attending Rankin Chapel, Alfred Street on Sunday mornings as well. So it's a very activist church, so I can understand what she's doing there and the congregation and what have you. So it was really good. We're going to talk a lot more about the March on Washington in weeks coming up. So I know you'll be here to join us for that. So I want to thank you again.
Thank you.
All righty. So as I mentioned earlier, this month is National Black Business Month. And joining me now is Chris Sneed, owner of multiple franchises in the DMV. His company, Grand Illuminations, is in Northern Virginia, but he's right here with us on WIN TV. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. I'm sure appreciate having me on your show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tell us about your business.
Well, Grand Illuminations is a one-stop shop for outdoor lighting and greenery. We do that in a three-pronged approach. Initially is a consultation with our clients to determine what type of design they'd like for their outdoor lighting and decoration. Secondly, our experienced and professionally staffed installers will install the lighting. And then finally, at the culmination of the season, we remove the lighting, catalog it, and store it in our climate-controlled storage. So we take away the danger and the time constraint of customers having to do the installation of this so they can enjoy their families and friends for the holidays.
Wow. Where have you been all my life? You know, when we have small children, right, we go through and we do all the things to celebrate. And then once they're up and gone, it's like, okay, I'll put a candle in the window and that's good enough. Exactly. But, you know, people like their places to be lit up and the illuminations and the designs and all that. And I always wonder who does that kind of work. So here you are.
Here we are. Grand
Illuminations. So how long have you been in business?
Grand Illuminations has been in business for one season, but this business has been around for quite a while. So really getting on the ground level, which is exciting. I did that with another franchise of mine, and so I'm very excited to work again with this franchisor and kick this off.
You know, when we think about franchises, also, you know, we think about McDonald's and some of the big companies, but there's so many others out there that we need to be taking advantage of. How did you get into the franchise business?
Well, that's a great question. I worked and traveled probably 70% of the time. So selfishly, I knew I wanted to do something that allowed me to be home and enjoy family and coach my sons and sports and that sort of thing. So that was the first. Secondly, I thought I might be I'd had some exposure to the restaurant side of franchising, and I thought that was really the way I would go. And I came across my initial opportunity with the outdoor pest control company called Mosquito Joe, and it's fantastic. Grand Illuminations, Mosquito Joe is a seasonal business. It goes from about March to Halloween. And Grand Illumination was a tremendous dovetail to the end of that, allowing me to support financially my technicians and staff and families throughout the entire year.
So what were some of the restaurant businesses you explored?
I explored, certainly McDonald's is one almost everyone explores. There are some other smaller regional restaurants here, right, that I've been involved with as well.
It seems as though it's a big hurdle from those of us on the outside looking in, to get into this industry, the franchise business industry? Is it as huge a leap as it appears?
It really isn't and doesn't have to be. And like anything, you have to do your due diligence. So I think I think first you want to align your interests and your skill sets with what you'd like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can reach out. Now with the internet, you can reach out and look at industries and opportunities for entry into this, to the franchising opportunity. There are hundreds and hundreds of wonderful franchise opportunities out there.
What would be a good place to go if folks wanted to explore what some of those opportunities are? Are there websites or magazines? What did you lean on?
I kind of stumbled into it. I saw a flyer. We built a home and we couldn't enjoy the outside, so we saw a flyer and reached out to try the service, and then from there did some research on the companies. But I think by simply going to any search engine, you can simply Google franchise opportunities. You can streamline it down to franchise opportunities in a particular industry that you like. And right now, you can just get a myriad of responses from that. And from there, you can reach out. They usually have information. You can reach out to them individually and have some meetings and conversation.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the I guess the real gut of this. I mean, does it cost a lot of money to make that initial investment into a franchise? I'm sure it's probably all across the board, depending on what it is you're going to go into. But if there's an average amount that someone needs to make sure that they have set aside if this is something they wanted to pursue.
Right. I think consistent across all franchise opportunities is a franchise fee, if you will, the opportunity and to utilize the name and have access to the resources. And that can range depending on the service or the product, anywhere. Then after that, each franchise typically has what they call a fee, an ongoing fee, or what's called a royalty, which is a percentage of the revenue that you make ongoing. Some folks see that as a barrier to getting into franchising, but it doesn't really have to be, because what it does is it opens up to just a myriad of resources, tremendous resources and training for you to be successful. And I think the most powerful part of that is the bandwidth of franchisees that are available to you. So at any time you can contact another franchisee who certainly is looking at the same common goal, but comes at oftentimes with a different perspective. We've all had perspectives and skill sets coming into this. And I think the greatest power and most invaluable power is it's utilizing and networking with the other franchisees.
This is Black Business Month. And, there's always, it's been a little while when folks have had this mission to really reach out to and support Black-owned businesses. But sometimes we can't always recognize them, right? So first of all, I don't know if that's helped or hurt your business. How do you brand yourself?
Well, and brand is the number one key in franchising. Everybody would love to have that yellow M up in the middle that everyone recognizes, or different brands, wonderful brands that are out there. We, I think in each case, we have certainly branding materials, but I think from ours, we are absolutely customer focused, and the time that I think customer focus is sometimes it's gone by the wayside. And so that opportunity to get in front of that customer and be there at all times. We have someone answers the phones. It's something that's fairly antiquated in this day and age. That really helps us as part of our customer focus. And then it's just really pushing that particular focus to draw a customer base, and then from there it's word of mouth. We're locally owned and operated, so we're in the neighborhood, and so that's really helped us as well.
As a Black business owner, though, I'm wondering, have you encountered any challenges to you as an owner? People not necessarily wanting to do business with you, or actually people looking for you because they want to do business with you, or customer concerns, anything like that?
Right. I don't know that I've seen many barriers because I haven't, and I'm not so naive to think that that may be the case, but I haven't seen that. I think they're, in terms of promoting, I mean, this is certainly a wonderful opportunity. Speaking with you, being registered as a minority business, both locally and federally, is another opportunity that we want to utilize and leverage But at the end of the day, I believe that we believe we have a wonderful product and service. We want the opportunity through various marketing opportunities to get in front of our clientele, and I think once we can convince them to try our opportunities, try our service, and then deliver on that promise, then it takes off from there. So I'd like to think that doesn't really matter whether I'm African American or not, but that I provide a good service, and most importantly, I'm there when some things don't go right.
Wonderful. I really wish, I'm feeling a little disappointed that we're not able to see some of your illuminations. That would have been really the icing on the cake here for the show. But as an ambassador, I'm naming you an ambassador for the franchise business industry. Why should people really consider getting into or owning a franchise?
As I kind of alluded to before, I think, first of all, and at anything, you want to do your due diligence. The franchise I've been involved with, Buzz Brands, was tremendous. It's been provided tremendous support, both marketing support and so on and so forth. The breadth of franchises that we have, and I've worked in both businesses with some of the same franchisees and getting information. I've hopped on planes and flown to Oklahoma City, flown to Florida, flown to Paris, Arkansas to meet with my franchisees. So you really got to do a little bit, to go above and beyond just to sort of, shorten the learning curve and make this as good as we can, because there's so many wonderful ideas and opportunities out there. So I think if you employ all those opportunities, but most importantly, I think align it with your skill set and your interests, because there are days that you feel like your things are going on with you or aren't going on with anyone else. And you want to lean on that reason why you started this business and got into that, which hopefully is a good one. And then the skill sets that brought you there, and trust the skill set that brought you there. And then and then on top of that, you've got the networking opportunity.
Wonderful. Well, one of my favorite shows is Undercover Boss. So I'm going to wait one day, because I'm going to see you flying from one franchise to the other and being pleasantly surprised that your whole team is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing to represent the business. But you ever thought about that?
I know our holding company as in that show Undercover Boss, it was the Dwyer Group, now called the Neighborly Group on the one franchise. But that was I'd love for that to happen. You always hope and pray that the message and the delivery that you provide to your staff is being delivered to the customer.
Right.
But I can tell you one thing: the litmus test is the customer. If it's not going the way it's supposed to go, you'll hear from them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for being with us and for sharing this, because we don't really think about franchising as probably as much as we should, and as much as you're encouraging us to. So I appreciate you coming on to join us. I would encourage folks to reach out to Grand Illuminations. If you're like me, we need you. So hopefully you'll be hearing from some of our customers who will become your customers as well. So thanks a lot for joining us.
I sure appreciate the time, and absolutely, please check out our websites, and we would love to provide our top-notch service and wow for the customers that haven't tried us to this point.
Right. Okay. All right, Chris Sneed, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
All righty. Yeah. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? I mean, I know there are people out there that do this, but now I know someone who does this. So come by my yard maybe this winter and see what kind of grand illuminations we're able to get going. And I look forward to that opportunity. Thank you, Chevy, for bringing Chris Sneed on. And now we look forward to talking with Thenie Freeman, who is the interim director of the DC Department of Recreation. And she's probably got some creators there, I know. But we're here to talk about Chuck Brown Day that's coming up soon. And believe it or not, they have relocated it from, I think, Chuck Brown Park now to, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to let her tell you because we want to get into the spirit. Okay, what we got, Sherry?
Do one more time. I don't hear you. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. I'm gonna roll with the greatest of easy. You can hit the bottom, take it any way that you please. Rock your bottom because I know that you got 'em. Can't do without 'em, don't tell me you forgot 'em. You got to do, that's what it do. You keep me shook, now you got me hooked. You never get it, if it gets a negative, we won't let it. Now everybody come along and kick it with me. I'm just a little brother from DC. With every different beat, I got a freaky.
All right. It's like, okay, let's go. Hey, Thenie, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm wound up now. I'm wound up.
Always.
Thank you for joining us. And, next Saturday, we're going to be celebrating the life of Chuck Brown. Tell us more about it.
So we are excited to bring to the city that we love. Mayor Bowser officially named the music of the city Go-Go. And so Chuck Brown Day is an opportunity to celebrate the magic of the music and also pay homage to the creator, our very own Chuck Brown. So that's what we will be doing August 19th at new location. Drum roll, please.
All righty. Where's it going to be?
Fort DuPont Park.
Of course. That's a great place. Everybody has fond memories of Fort DuPont Park from the concerts in the park. And it's nice to be back there again. So why the change?
So honestly, we've just outgrown Langdon Park. Langdon, it's where the Chuck Brown Memorial Park is, and there's a museum. There's a history, a timeline about him on the backside. There's a beautiful art piece that pays homage to him, and there's a small little, not necessarily an amphitheater, but like a pop-up concert pavilion space where you can. And we've just outgrown that. And it was never designed for the number of people. And so Langdon was just not safe. And it wasn't all inclusive. And when I say all inclusive, I think about our residents who are wheelchair bound and may need have mobility issues. There was no way they could move through the park. And so for us, if there's limitations on the experience for one, there's limitations on the experience for all. And so we made the courageous decision against some to move it to a better place where everybody, a multi-generational party with a purpose for our city could be.
So Fort DuPont was considered the best venue, or were there some other places you were looking at as well?
We did. We looked all over the city. We looked at downtown, having the concerts similar to how Mayor Bowser had the 4th of July. We looked at that. We looked at Anacostia Park. But there's a nostalgia at Fort DuPont Park that is historic for our Go-Go community. And it's a place where Chuck Brown's children have never performed.
Oh,
and so
wow.
And so not only was moving it giving them an opportunity to be a part of their father's legacy in a different way, because now they get to perform on a stage where he's performed and so many people fell in love with him. And if I can add, I want us as a community to get away from the idea that we can only have one thing to pay homage to our people and our legends, right? So Chuck Brown Park is one thing. It's there. By all means, take your family, have a picnic, enjoy jazz in the park. But that has nothing to do with Chuck Brown Day. And
Right.
so just another opportunity to celebrate him.
You know, I was in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and it was at the same time that they did their, you know, Chicago has what they call house music, which I never
Yes,
knew anything about.
yes, you do.
But it doesn't beat go-go. Has a little bit, makes you want to move, but doesn't beat go-go. But you know, they do an annual, you know, house music day as well, and it's not where, it's just having the people together to do the event. Of course, they have a lot of vendors and other stuff out there, but it just made me think about what we have in Washington, and yeah, and we have such great venues. You know, we have so many venues in this city, so I mean, it could have been anywhere, but I think I give you a star or 5 stars for coming up with Fort DuPont Park. I think that's a great place, and a lot of people haven't been there in a long time.
And
So
you
how are
know,
they maintaining the park?
it's a great question. As we are trying to build our National Park Service and our DPR relationship, it really makes sense. And to your point, there's so many beautiful park spaces in the district that are really underutilized. And how do we ensure and bring opportunities to our residents? The one thing that I don't think that I said is that this event is free,
Ah, okay,
right? And so
it's a
because
good thing.
right, it's a great thing that we create cultural opportunities to celebrate our music that is free to our residents. And
Right.
so, yeah, we're excited about this partnership with the National Park Service. They did not have any acts this summer like they used to do the Summer Park series, and they have gotten away from that. And so we're hoping to help them get reconnected so that we can create opportunities for families to come out and do some things together.
And it's a win-win. You know, when a couple of weeks ago at the or the parade over off of MacArthur Boulevard, I forget the name of that parade.
Palisades.
Yeah, Palisades. Yeah, when Ron Moten brought the Go-Go band through, Chuck Brown band. I mean, it was a diverse group of people, young, old, white, black, Hispanic, everybody was out there. I mean, I think everybody loves the music, and I'm sure everybody is invited to Fort DuPont to enjoy this concert uh, on the 19th. Correct?
Absolutely. And the thing we know about music, music is healing. Music crosses across all spectrums. What we know, music is universal. Music has no color. Music has no gender. We know that, right? And so we want to, our go-go has been around for a long time, but our youth, you know, our go-go bands, there was a time when they were not playing in the city. We know why, but there was a time, and we're seeing that there was a drop off in interest. So there's been intentionality on getting it back because it is ours. It belongs to us. And when I say us, it's the city of DC. And I'm going to piggyback off what you made about the comment about Chicago and house. You probably didn't know because you probably associated that with Baltimore. Because see, Baltimore and Chicago share house music, but DC,
Oh,
yeah, right,
yeah. Okay. Okay.
right. But
I don't know anything
DC,
about Baltimore either, so
right, because we
all
have
I know is go-go.
and we have our own that we don't have to share. And that's the
Exactly.
beauty of it. And
Wonderful.
ensuring that we can continue, the wind me up Chuck should be something that goes on for generations and generations and generations.
Exactly. Now we're almost out of time, and I've got a couple more questions I want to ask you. One, who else will be performing there? And then I also want to know what the Department of Rec is doing. You know, schools are getting ready to start, and if there's anything you might want to share with us about, what your programs are going to be for these our students as they head back to school.
Absolutely. DJ Cool, DJ Quicksilver, Backyard Band will be performing, another fan favorite in the district, as well as the District Kings. So we have a great lineup and some other kind of surprises. I'll keep it very close. Also for the fall programming, I'm glad you asked. Fall programming launches on August 15th, starting with our aquatics programs first, and then on August 16th with our regular programming. And so please, if you do not have a rec account already, please go to dpr.programs, and get your account registered. Please come join us in the fall. We have an afternoon access program at all of our recreation centers so that children, when they come home from school, they have a place to come safe, get some food, get some mentorship, and have some great activities. We're here. There's always something fun and safe for your children to do. So please use us as a resource.
Oh, Thene, you're giving me you're making me really nostalgic because growing up in DC, right after school, that's where I headed to the rec center and stayed there for a couple hours until it was time for me to go home. And so, you know, it was a safe place. I learned, I played sports, you know, I made friends, and it was a good experience. So I'm glad we're back to that. And
Yes.
keep up the work. Keep up the good
Thank
work.
you. Back
All
to
right.
rec. And I just want to say before I go, you know where I am. Where am I?
Where are you? It looks like
Come
yeah, it's a
on.
recreation center, but I'm trying to figure out where. I can't, our screen is so tiny.
It's
Are
only
you at
one.
Berry Farms?
No, I am at the Southeast Tennyson Learning Center here in the
Oh, you know,
Great
it looked
North
like tennis
Cape.
courts. Yes, yes, yes. It
Yes,
looked like tennis courts, but I couldn't really tell. Okay, I see them now.
I
I
am
see them
here.
now.
And
Okay.
right, we just closed out the summer program yesterday, and we're getting ready for our after school program. So families, if you're in Ward 8, if you're on this side of town, please come register your children for our after school program so you don't have to worry about where they are after school. They can be here doing something fun and safe, as Ms. Rolock Barnes indicated. And so again, it's a win for you, it's a win for us, it's a win for all of us.
All righty. All righty. I'm going to end on that note because I like to be on the winning side. So thank you so much for being with us, Thene Freeman from the DC Department of Recreation and Parks. Did I say that right? Parks and Recreation. I'll get it right. Whatever. Just we're winning. DPR. Thanks a lot. We'll see you out there at the Chuck Brown Day. All righty. Okay, so this really brings us to the end of Win TV, but we're going to extend the program just a little bit longer because, you know, we can't go away without talking about the biggest news story for a lot of us over the last week, and that was the melee in Montgomery, the Montgomery Riverboat Brawl. And we're going to have our Washington Informer fearless reporters to come on and talk about their perspectives on this and where we are with it. And you know, as our editor said yesterday, she's wondering if she's going to have to get a carry license for a folding chair. It's been crazy. Stacey Brown, Hamil Harris, Sam P.K. Collins. What's happening?
Well, I love all the chair stuff. I tell you what, people said, for instance, the co-captain, and Chevy, thanks to your great producer, Chevy. Chevy made it known that the guy that they jumped in the first place was not a security guard. He was the co-captain of the boat. But having
Exactly.
said that, a fourth person turned themselves in. It was a woman, 21 years old. So 4 of them are now under arrest, and all of them are the aggressors. And Montgomery police, it's not known yet if they question the chairman of the board, if you will, but he was named as a person, the only African American individual, the one with the chair, wanted for questioning. But that's just the newsy part of it. But Sam, Hamil, I mean, I know you guys are chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I just want to say this, but you know, I'm from Pensacola, Florida, and Montgomery is 2 hours north. Montgomery is like our little downtown, a mini of Atlanta, and the Alabama River goes through Montgomery, through Selma, down to Mobile. That's where the slaves came in. And so this incident had all the wrong stuff at the right time. The Harriet Tubman II, this riverboat, and the crew and the police chief is African American. And you saw what happened. That spot, that river spot, is designated for that big old riverboat. And those people know they were wrong. And again, that's my point. I want to hear what Sam says because I can talk all day about this. This is my favorite spot. When you take 65, Stacy, and 85 to 65, after Montgomery, I'm going home to my home, and they messing with my little area. You know,
It also turns out that this wasn't the first time that group had refused to move their boat.
right. That's right. Tell it, Sam.
And if I'm not mistaken, because I mean, not only the captain, as you said, Hamil, and the chief of police, but the mayor of Montgomery is
right.
49-year-old mayor of Montgomery, who actually praised, and Sam, you know, this doesn't happen too often, but praised not only the first responders for responding quickly, but also the residents who shared videos and gave testimony. That doesn't happen often, right? Where police and communities work together to help to solve or identify black and white, because there's a 16-year-old kid, white kid, that was also beaten up by some of the white folks on that boat. But go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, if I may chime in, and a major part of the reason why that happened was because Black people actually fought back this time. And in cases when our brothers and sisters are being pummeled and killed on camera and we do nothing about it, the state has the upper hand in not holding themselves accountable. So in a case where a man who was right in asking a group of white people to move somewhere was being jumped and other Black people jumped in and Black people caught the footage, then the state, from the mayor all the way to the prosecutor and the police, had no choice but to respond. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they will respond and what possible blowback there's going to be in this case. Because with all of the jokes, I think that it's very appropriate for us to recognize that this happened during the month of Black August, which is a commemoration that started in the prison systems in the early 1970s with the death of George Jackson. May his soul rest in peace. And when you look at the prison system is the epicenter of the racial and the class struggle that happens in this country, because people who are inmates are toe to toe, if not with prison guards, then with fellow inmates of different races. So what happened on that riverboat was us using our animal instincts, and not saying that we are subhumans, but we are animals in the sense that in the animal kingdom, when somebody is going against you, your mind just clicks and you hop out there. And for the longest time, Black people have been over intellectualizing a lot of what we have been going through. We've been putting up the camera too much. As a matter of fact, and I'll stop here, I wish they didn't put the camera on at all. You know, they should not have identified the 16-year-old boy. They should not have identified anybody involved in that, because that's not militaristic. With all the jokes that we're doing, who knows what the state is doing? Who knows what the relatives and the friends of those white people on the boat are doing for their get back? Because they will always get their
Especially
get
in
back.
Alabama.
So let me say, and that's one reason why, and again, you know, I just want to make it clear that we don't condone violence.
Nope.
But I do appreciate the editorial that we ran in the newspaper this week. And I'm just going to read a quote from it. But it says, I mean, in essence, the fight on August 5th is an example of how Black Alabamians have the long history they've had of combating injustices. I mean, they were in the heart of the civil rights movement, from the Montgomery bus boycott, the tragic bombing at the Birmingham 16th Street Baptist Church, and the Selma marches. I mean, they have been in the middle of the struggle, and yet they have always fought back. So it's no surprise that in this incident, you know, we would have seen a reenactment of the history of what Blacks in Alabama have done to fight back this issue, whether they were in prison or just trying to go to church.
Well, I'm sorry, Stacey.
No, I was going to say, I think that the response, well, for me, it kind of reminded me in a really eerie way, or a weird way, I should say, of the response to the O.J. Simpson verdict. And the reason why, people have to understand that Black people as a whole did not think and do not think O.J. was innocent. It wasn't about O.J. Simpson's guilt or innocence. It was about this pent up frustration that we continue to be taken down in courts. The cops beat Rodney King, and that was really the backdrop of the O.J. trial, was the fact that those officers were acquitted, and we all saw it. And so OJ got the benefit of that. And in Alabama, what you're saying, Denise, is absolutely right. They have this history of responding, but we continue to see this, not only the videos of police and these Karens and Kens over and over again. And we keep hearing Black people say, I wish a Karen would, I wish a Ken would. Well, this time it happened in a spot where it was ripe for retaliation. The day before, Donald Trump held a rally there, not almost steps away from where this incident happened. Also, that incident, as Hamil brought out a little bit, it happened in almost a very spot where they used to trade slaves. And so you had all this history going on there, and you had all this palpable energy. And I love the fact that the captain, when first questioned by the police, and he stands by this, he says, the response wasn't racially motivated. The incident was racially motivated. They attacked him because he was Black. And those Black guys stood up for him because, yeah, he was Black, but they also saw the injustice and they were tired of it. Those guys had no racial malice. They just was fed up. They saw this guy doing his job, this Black man doing his job, and be attacked by what appears to be a group of racists.
And another thing that's good is good. And I've been doing studies for years in Montgomery. For years, all we had was Dexter Avenue and the Capitol. You know, the symbol of supremacy and Dr. King's church, and that was it. But then over the years, they have developed the riverfront area. We didn't have that riverfront area. My grandmama and all these people, okay, from Evergreen, Alabama. But the point is, they have worked hard to make this a venue for entertainment, an outdoor stage, places to come, okay? So that's the new spot. And now you don't have to go over to Atlanta to have downtown experiences. So it's going to be interesting because the last undeveloped little area is Selma. You go across the Pettus Bridge, you got to drive 40, 50 miles or back to Montgomery to get you something to eat. And so right now, there's a lot of economic planning going on to what's going to happen to Selma. Ironically, those people that were arrested, the whites, come from Selma, come from the suburbs between Selma and Montgomery, because they're trying to develop that area. And so right now, this is an economic time bomb for Terry Sowell, that congressman, of what they're going to do now.
Yeah. Sam, you know what, Sam, I found also, Sam and Denise, to be very telling about this. The response, of course, was just phenomenal. Like you said, I certainly don't condone violence, and I know the informant doesn't. You don't. None of us on this program right now, I dare say, condone any type of violence. But I think that response was so fulfilling. But what was also fulfilling is it was reported that Aquaman there, the gentleman who jumped in the water, that they started a GoFundMe with a $150,000 goal, and they reached that within hours. And then also Stephanie Mills, the great Stephanie Mills, one of the greatest voices in music, has repeatedly said any of those Black men charged, or if they have bail, or if they need a lawyer, whatever, she will perform a benefit concert to raise all the funds needed. And you have others stepping up saying, we got your back, and they mean it. And here we are, like what we a week or more now since the incident, and you still have people, Black folks, stepping up saying, hey, whatever you need. And I think that's so powerful, especially given the time we now live in.
Do y'all think, can I ask one more question?
Let Sam jump. Oh, I thought Sam was going to jump in there. Sam?
You know, I like seeing the responses. Looking forward, you know, I'm always going to be that guy. And I don't mean this out of, disrespect, because I really enjoyed seeing the actual event happen. You know, it made my heart light. And I, for one, will say I too do not condone violence. I condone self-defense. I think that everybody has a human right to self-defense, and we have to start, like I said, start thinking more militaristically, more indigenously, and we got to start thinking of ourselves as a nation. What I saw in that video was an example of nation building in the sense that, and of course, they said it wasn't, race. It started off as race, but I saw black people going against white people, and I saw black men in particular seeing a fellow black man getting jumped by white men and jumping in. So, it's going to be racial. There's no way to cut it. And I think that part of the reason why, we have been in our situation is because we are running away from race. But what happened is a situation when race is right in your face. Now, moving forward, I do want us as a people to have, the same level of respect and regard for other black people who are in the midst of other situations, because time and time again it's always a case of, well, did they deserve to get in that situation? Did they start it? What happened with them? I know, for one, there are times when I see police officers surrounding someone, I might stop my car across the street just to wait and see. We need to start having that type of response to anything involving our people at any time of the day. And once again, I definitely got to big up Black August. It's not by happenstance that event happened during Black August. You're talking about the same month as the Haitian Revolution, Nat Turner's Rebellion, Marcus Messiah Garvey's birthday, George Jackson's death, August 21st, going toe-to-toe with prison guards, the Soledad brothers, one of whom just got released out the prison system, okay? We are in a time when the black response to white terrorism gets vilified and commodified and even turned into a parody, to the very point where we just we second guess the whole notion of having to jump up against somebody hurting us. We don't have to say that we are not violent. If somebody's being violent against us, we have every right to defend ourselves.
But Sam, when are we gonna go? And I know
Go ahead, you got it.
But okay, when we get through fighting and all this stuff, and I know the history too, but I'm tired of having to drive 90 miles to use the bathroom because there's no place in Selma to buy something to go to a bathroom. I'm tired of having
the CBC at? Where's the CBC at? The CBC.
When do we get the same?
CBC at?
But
where's the CBC at in that? This old civil rights leadership.
Can I finish my point?
Go ahead, my fault.
What I'm saying is, when do we have the same energy to put money in critical spots so we can take care of our seniors, so we can take care of people, so we can have a place to nourish ourselves? That's
isn't this like a Hamil, isn't this like a good start? I mean, some people
it's a start, but it ain't the end. I mean, we need all of this. We need all of this. It's the same month as the March on Washington. It's just summer August. And I'm saying is that right now, the older generation, they in the 80s, retired or dead.
And that's the CBC for you, Sam. That's the CBC,
that's the CBC for you. Exactly.
They're still holding on.
Oh, no, I agree.
Numbers come on for real. And if I may, the struggles, the so-called struggle, turned from race to class with the installation of the CBC. Okay, because 50 years ago during the Gary Convention, we developed a whole resolution around different aspects of our existence, and we sold it off to the Democratic Party. So now here we are in a sea of obligations to the Democratic Party while going off on our young people. We can't even correct our young people in the streets. We're afraid of them. So I think that all of this, to your point, falls at the feet of the CBC in particular. Old politicians, elder politicians. Now, mind you, we have gerrymandering, but at the very same time, what are they doing in office to create economic opportunities? And I'm not saying they're not, but it's a question that needs to be answered. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think it, and this is where I thought this conversation would go, which is voting, because the people that we have in office, they don't just walk in there on their own. Someone puts them there. And we keep them there. So I mean, if they are being accused of being ineffective, who do we blame for that?
Well,
them
maybe they ought to take
or us.
Maybe they'll take a page out of Ron DeSantis's book then, right? He kicked out a couple of elected officials in office there. Maybe it's time that as nefarious as that is, that what he's doing, maybe it's the right way, but the wrong person doing it. Maybe what Sam's saying, maybe the CBC or somebody else can pick that mantle, that mantle up and run with it. I will say this: Sam mentioned too about we talked about the racial component. I must say that when the guy said that it was racially motivated when they attacked him, but the counterattack wasn't racially motivated. What I believe what he meant was there was no racial hatred from the black guys. It was just like you said, they're defending a black man being jumped by what appeared to be a bunch of racists. And one other point I wanted to make this, because Sam brought this up too. He says he pulls over when he sees another black motorist being pulled over. He waits. There was an experience I had earlier this year, and I've shared this with others, but I picked my daughter up from school. We're driving down the street. It's like a one lane because there was construction. And in the turning lane was a state trooper who we stopped at a light, and there's a state trooper there. He's signaling to me to roll my window down. And my daughter's like, he's trying to get your attention. So I roll my window. He says, if you don't mind, I'd like to get in front of you when the light turns, because I'm going to pull that car over that's in front of you. And I looked ahead and see who was driving. It was a white woman driving. And I was like, sure. Now, it's a shame to say, but this is where we at. I probably would have, and I joke about it, but I probably would have done, if that was Sam driving, a black man driving in that car, I probably would have said, you know what? Because he couldn't move unless I moved. Oh, my car can't start us. It would have been something. Because I couldn't live with myself if I let him go pull this black man or black woman over, and then I'm writing about them tomorrow.
Well, and I've heard you tell that story too, Stacy, and I think that depending on who was behind that wheel, the approach to the car would have been different.
That's true too.
He
probably
would have
wouldn't have
forced you
asked.
to stop. Yeah, he wouldn't have asked you to stop. He would have forced you to.
Because I wondered, Denise, why did he ask?
Yeah, that was being
also,
very polite. He didn't want to scare this woman half to death, but otherwise it wouldn't have mattered. I just want to say, and not that I'm being disagreeable, but right now, and maybe Sam has an answer for that, and I don't blame it on the CBC, but right now in cities across this country, like I just said earlier, I just left Chicago, here in DC. We're under attack, and what we see in front of our eyes is an attack by those people that look like us attacking us. Right? We don't have that situation that we had in Montgomery. That does not happen every day that we know of. There might be situations like that in stores or streets or what have you. It doesn't happen every day. But what we're seeing every day are attacks on our community. I mean, I don't even like to look at social media right now, because some of the stories that I see, are heart-wrenching about how inhumane we have become to each other.
Yes.
So, I am proud when people will come to the rescue of someone who needed help. He really needed help, even though I think at some point, once the crowd came, he tried to walk away, to get out of the midst of that. He didn't want to get in this fight. But, I don't know how we address that. And I'm not trying to change the subject to say that, I can look past that, but I am more looking at what's happening when I walk out my front door today.
But what you're saying, Denise, is I'm sorry, Emil, but what you're saying is exactly why so many, particularly African Americans, were so enthralled with this situation in Montgomery, because we have too many. We have too many Ice Cubes of the world. We have too many Jay-Z's who don't look back. We have too many Clarence Thomases people who look like us, but certainly do not have our interests at heart. We have too many of that, and we don't necessarily see it among other communities, but we see it in ours. I saw Chuck D. Tomorrow's the big celebration in New York on the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And you have all these huge hip hop acts, young and old there. And Chuck D made a point in an interview with NBC News, and I retweeted it. I don't normally retweet mainstream media. I retweet, Washington Informer, Black Press, etc. But he made a profound point. He said that, and he always making profound points, but he said, they asked him, he's celebrating, you should be celebrating the fact that a lot of these hip hop artists, LL Cool J, Ice Cube, et cetera, Will Smith, goes on and on, have become these big time TV and movie stars, right? And he said, that is great. He said, but here's the problem I have with a lot of guys who've done that. He said, today you call them to if they're performing or they're involved in something hip hop, they show up 2-3 hours late. But if they got a set, a TV show, a movie set that they got to be at, they're the first ones there. It's the mentality. And so we have too much of that mentality that we can just treat each other, whatever. But when it comes to the other man, those who don't look like us, we still have that, perhaps that slave mentality.
And I like Stacey what you're saying. I think it's easy to do the soundbite news, to run around. That's what the young, whatever. I'm not going to disparage any group, but I've been in the dialogue with my old football team because I was in a school that was integrated. And when my mom and dad, like most of the team, most showed up with people that don't look like me. In terms of they took me to eat, and one of them owns a pig farm in Alabama, right? They all own something. And so we start talking about the future and trying to come together. And so we spent the last couple months trying to get the blacks and the whites at the table, and our coach was from Selma, and to try to think of some new things we can do. And that's not sexy. That's not going to be on Instagram or whatever. But we have to have some type of dialogue because it's like I was saying, you own the pigs that supply all the barbecue pits. I'm talking about corporate stuff. You own this, but none of you guys have a magazine called Alabama Today. I live 14 miles from the Alabama line, and there's money to be made, big money, okay? So why can't we all do something together? But that's not popular. Oh, you just been Uncle Tom or whatever. That's the hell if that's the truth. But I'm just saying is that we got to have a dialogue different than, like you said, the Black Caucus, whatever, where we can have a come to Jesus moment and say, we got to try something else other than just killing each other and dying in a blaze of flame. I mean, is that all we can do?
Well, on the CBC front, Denise, I agree 100% with Sam as laying a lot of blame there for a lot of reasons. I agree 100% with him. I don't think he said anything wrong there.
No, I wouldn't have said that he said anything wrong either. No, however, politics is politics. You know what I mean? And that's one arena where it controls our lives, because of the laws that they make. They're lawmakers, right? They could do more in a lot of different ways. They really could do more, but you got a lot of politics that goes on up there, and black, white, Hispanic, female, whatever. We all sometimes are under attack because people won't, they're there on their own agendas and they don't hear from their constituents, to say, we don't like what you did, you're out of there. I mean, you got people up there that are so old, they can't remember what they're saying in the middle of a sentence. And their constituents are now saying to them, retire.
But wait, Denise, right? Though, let me throw this in there though, because you talk about getting rid of them, but look what it's alleged that Jim Clyburn did, right? Do we know that story?
Yeah,
I mean, basically, he sold everybody out to make sure that he kept his seat. If this report is true,
it's politics. It's politics, and it's. But Sam, go ahead. Sam, go ahead. Go ahead and say what you're going to say.
I mean, you made a very good point, Denise. Politics is politics, and I think we need to go back to the Citizens United decision when we talk about who is the people. So it's like when you talk about the people, there's the people, me, you, Stacey Brown, and Hamil Harris. The people's no longer us. The people are corporations. Corporations that fund CBC dinners, corporations who, when you go to these places, they don't even go to Southeast. They're going to be at the convention center. The furthest they'll walk will be to and from the station and the hotel.
They're coming to Southeast this year, Sam.
They are? Okay.
Yeah.
I
What
want
they
to
gonna do?
which part of Southeast? Across the river, Southeast? Or we
You'll
talking-
have to read the Washington Informer to find out.
Okay, respect. All right, respect. But
It's the stories coming, but I hear that's on, and you know why? Because it's not the CBC, as you all know. You know, the legislative weekend is run by the CBCF, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation.
Right.
Those are young folks that manage that organization, that put the weekend together, that set up the agenda with the help of the members of Congress who say this is what we want to talk about. But the weekend is put together by, you know, a group of young folks who've said, we've got to spread this thing out. You know, they understand. But, you know, every one of those members of Congress has a Southeast, all of them, you know. And so, you know, in the District of Columbia, because many of them own homes in this city, you know, or rent places in this city, they don't make it over here. So somebody, my understanding, said, we're going to go east of the river.
that's beautiful. And, you
But
know,
then
I would
what they
like
gonna
to-
do when they go? They gonna just go there and have a photo op, or they gonna do something? They gonna build a school. They gonna help us with the football kids that we've been to go out here. There's a lot they can do besides just looking good and taking a photo of and get on that nice bus and go back across. I'm with Sam on this some of this
Well,
stuff.
I don't expect them to do all that, Hamil. I really
Well,
don't.
I don't
I mean,
really
the only one expected
don't
to do that is our own congresswoman who doesn't have a vote, and that's
Yeah,
Eleanor
doesn't have
Holmes
a
Norton.
vote.
But
The
that's-
rest,
you know
the
what?
rest
She
of
got
them
a
have to
voice.
look out for their own
Read the informal
communities.
story, what she said this week. Read the informal story. But she may not have a voice, but she do more power with no voice. The half of them, they got committee co-chairmanships and stuff.
This has gone from, like I thought it would. That whole incident down there certainly does. It opens up a can of issues that we all know, because every time something happens, I mean, we can go back from the time they brought us to this country to the present, and we keep having the same conversations. Don't deny that we're making progress. We are making progress. Slow progress. Slow
I
progress.
like this though.
But we're making it.
This
If-
is
if
nice.
I may.
like this.
Go on,
If-
Sam, and you can close this out, I think.
All right, so we are making progress. What I'm going to say is that for every step that we make, there's a concerted effort to bring us back several steps back.
No
So,
question.
you know, so there's always that. It's always been a cycle of building something, having it taken down, then rebuilding it. It's always been our story on this side. So we can't take that away. That being said, I wanted to briefly go back to your point about, you know, us being able to be in our neighborhoods and feel safe. I believe, I know for sure that it is an all hands on deck effort. We can't be scared of young people. We can't criminalize young people. And we got to tackle the societal factors that fuel criminal behavior, because we have people in power, our people who are in power in these major cities. They're Democrats for the most part. They are conservatives or middle of the road. They are not liberals at all, in the sense that they want to give programs to people. They want to, make sure that people's standard of living is up to par. There's a conservatism within the Black Democratic apparatus that we cannot stop talking about, because we let them go year after year, election cycle after election cycle. I'm talking about from the mayor on down. We're talking about from the passage of this Emergency Criminal Act that only Janice Lewis George voted against. We're talking about the re-election of DC Mayor Bowser. And even after that, her budget proposal cut ERAP, it cut food, it cut a whole lot. So there's a conservatism within the Black community, and not the type of conservatism where we're saving our heritage, but a conservatism where we are against young people. We are against young people, and we are against elders, people who are the custodians of our history and people who bring us on to the next step. So until we get that figured out, Until we learn how to act like a family once again and stop hinging on these titles, then we're never going to get out of this hellhole. I think we're making progress, but we got a long way to go in terms of our mindset. I'll stop there.
That's where I said we will end with Sam, and I think that's a good note to end on. Sam, thank you very much. Same thing, Stacey Brown, Hamil Harris. Hope to have you all back again. I really enjoyed this conversation, and in the end, we hope there will be some takeaways that people can, can make that change that you're talking about, Sam. We got to stop talking about it. We got to be about it. All right, you all take care. Have a great one. This is the end of
We
Win
do this
TV.
again. I like this.
Okay, Hamil, you got it. I'm going to cut us off right now.
Love you, Stacey. Much love, y'all. Much
love. Much love to me, Sam. You love me.
All love.
All right.